Okay, as it's 2 o'clock, I would like to welcome you all to our today's webinar titled Powering Equality, Women, Energy Justice and Community Solutions. Today we would like to explore how gender, energy poverty and community-led energy solutions or actions intersect in Europe. With us, we have 3 initiatives or projects. The first one is EPA, which will be presented by Marina Vervesi. Then we have 2 projects, which are Gender4Power and Wise. Gender4Power is financed from LIFE program and Project Wise is financed from the SERVE program. Respectively, Ben Technol and Marilyn Smith will be presenting the activities related to involving women in energy transition, showing solidarity with women in energy transition, and some best practices, lessons learned, things that we can do to make sure that the energy transition is involving everyone. Without further ado, I would kick off the event by giving Marina the possibility to talk briefly about EPA and how EPA is dealing with engagement and solidarity and making sure that we leave no one behind. Marina, the floor is yours.
Lydia, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to speak about this important issue about gender and energy poverty. I guess you all know what EPA is. EPA is the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. It is an initiative of DG Energy to bring together, to coordinate, to support all the actors working on energy poverty. So it's not specific on gender, but it encompasses all the aspects of energy poverty. The activities that we do within EPA are numerous, from publications to a dashboard of indicators to an atlas of initiatives. So if you go on the atlas, you can browse all the different European, but also worldwide and also national, local initiatives on specific aspects. So you can find also the ones on gender. And this is a very, very timely webinar because we have opened the technical assistance call. So, and it will be possible to submit proposals by, I think, the 12th of March until the 31st, the 12th of February until the 31st of March. Technical assistance are addressed mainly to municipalities. So the idea is that if municipalities are keen on doing an initiative, on obviously energy poverty, they can ask for a technical assistance through this open call, and EPA, once the proposal is selected, will match the expert to follow the municipality throughout this initiative. Technical assistances can vary along the 3 main activities of the 3-phase EPA methodology, that is diagnosis, planning and implementation. So we've had in the past technical assistances on gender, but also on different aspects. And it would be great if more proposals on gender do come in this year. So if you are working with some municipalities and you would like to suggest to them to do something more on gender, this is the opportunity. Could be, for example, diagnosis of women in energy poverty rather than diagnosis of energy poverty in general. It could be analyzing the key aspects of women addressing energy poverty or whatever. I mean, as long as it is within the 3 phases of diagnosis, planning and implementation, it is eligible as a technical assistance. If you go on the EPA website, you will find all the information of the technical assistance call. And another very timely communication I have regarding EPA is that in March we will be holding our annual conference. This year it will be in Athens. Registrations are open, so if you happen to be in Athens or you want to join EPA, please do join us in Athens, and also there the registration form and all the details of the conference are on the website. The last thing I would like to say regarding EPA is that this year we have launched the so-called working group, getting together all the projects, EU-funded projects, working on energy poverty. We've had the first round of meetings, and it was a pleasure to have Lydia bringing up the gender issue at our meeting. And indeed, there is much more to say. So just to give you an anticipation, we will be having a second round of the working group meetings in April. So if you are an EU-funded project working on energy poverty, please do contact us to join the working group. If you have tools, there is the form that you can fill in and let us know what are your tools related on energy poverty, because we will be building a sort of repository of all tools on energy poverty. And waiting for you to join the discussion within this working group. And that's the synthesis of where we are with EPA and what we can do to support the more discussion and going on with the issue about gender and energy poverty, which indeed is very important, as I'm sure the next coming presentations will show us. Thanks again, Lydia, and everyone, for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you, Marina, for this quick glimpse of all the activities and all the work that EPA is doing. Meanwhile, in the chat, I posted the link to the website of EPA, so you can all have a look at the initiatives that Marina mentioned. And please, you're all welcome to join to the technical call and the other events that are being organized. Maybe before we proceed, I would just like to let you know that we have Q&A window or spot where you can post your questions. So if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to use this window as we go along. And after the presentations, we'll have a bit of space for addressing your questions or having possibility that you share your initiatives as well. Yeah. Then let's move over to Bente, who will be talking about co-creating gender-fair energy solutions for resilient communities. Bente, I think you have a presentation, so please, the floor is yours.
So many thanks. Just a technical request. Can you see my shared screen also in the full screen? Yes. So thanks for the reaction. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. I'm very happy that I have the chance and the opportunity to present Gender for Power, and especially our gender approach within Gender for Power. I would like to talk about our gender responsive co-creation of energy solutions that I want to give you some insights how we have started and how we are about to implement the gender approach within our European project Gender for Power. And before I start with my presentation, I would like you to think about energy transition and what do we picture when we think about energy transition. Mainly, not maybe the audience here, but the general audience, probably they think about engineers when talking about energy transition. They maybe think about solar panels or smart grids. So mainly, most of the people think about, well, engineering stuff and technical stuff. And what we quite often forget, or what we do not think about when it comes to energy transition, is the human factor. Is about men and women, especially about women. And we know from the statistics that older women living alone are quite, yeah, it's a high number of old women living alone in Europe, living alone also in poorly isolated buildings. And so we really have to be aware that the energy transition is not gender neutral. And if we ignore the gender dimension, then we risk building a kind of a green system that reproduces old inequalities. So that was the starting point of our project, Gender4Power. We are very happy that we got funds from the LIFE program. And we are very happy that we have a 4 years project. We started back in November 2024. And we have still quite of a time to work in our project. We are happy that WIP from Germany is coordinating our project. And we have a consortium of in total 9 different organizations from 6 countries, from Germany, from Slovenia, Austria, from Spain, Greece, and also Lithuania. So I think with our consortium and also with our approach, we can really cover quite a huge number of people, and we can also cover different situations all over Europe. And what we do and what is the main objective of our Gender4Power project is that we want to improve financial stability. We want to improve financial stability, as I've mentioned, and also improve health and well-being, energy efficiency. And that is quite kind of unique within our Gender4Power. We integrate the gender dimension throughout of all our activities, and we work with a gender responsive lens. We work on intersectional approaches, and we are quite citizen-driven and also driven by women-led initiatives. And one big issue and what we really expect is that we also want to develop policy recommendations in order to close the gap between gender equality, energy communities, and energy poverty. So that's our triangle. We really want to work on one hand, practical examples and also on policy recommendations. The slide, I hope you are not shocked with the lots of the text on our slide now. It's about our activities. So we work on renovation and energy efficiency improvements. And what is also very, very important is to integrate the social dimension. So we integrate also communication and capacity building activities throughout our project. We directly work with vulnerable households and with citizens and want to really to include them in the energy transition alongside the slogan, leave no one behind. So that's really one big issue and one big aim of our project. And our approach, as I have mentioned, is gender responsive co-creation, really to embed the co-creation and gender responsive co-creation approach throughout all of our activities. We really see our co-creation, gender responsive co-creation really as a structural success factor. And we have an underlying gender mainstreaming cycle that's underlying the conceptualization of our activities. So the gender analysis is an important baseline, and we carried out different gender analysis of our demonstrator sites. I will talk in the next slide about these activities. And then we developed also tailor-made thematic areas that are based on the gender analysis. We worked on and defined targets and indicators so that we can really also monitor and measure success when integrating the gender perspective in our activities. And one important issue is really to have a close look on the process, on how to integrate various groups of people, and also facilitating the participation process. We have in our project, as I have mentioned, 9 partners and from 6 countries. And in each of our countries, we have so-called demonstrators, real-life demonstrators with various different contexts. So we have demonstrators that are more located in the urban area, but also in rural settings. We have demonstrators with different governance models, and they implement different energy technologies. And what is really crucial and important is that each demonstrator really acts as a kind of a living lab. So these 6 different demonstrators, they use the same methodology in implementing their actions and implementing the gender dimension, but each demonstrator has another specific topic, specific content. And with the help of our demonstrator, we can test different formats, how on inclusive participation, how to include and how to address and how to build up capacity building with our target groups. And each demonstrator is really also acting as a kind of as a pilot study for gender responsive governance mechanisms. We are very happy that all those demonstrators have already started working. And as I have mentioned, the gender dimension is really one key issue and key approach in our project. We have of course, started with gender trainings for all the demonstrator members, and then we have prepared a manual, and we have developed we call it version 1 of our gender action plan for each demonstrator. We have finalized the first versions of the gender action plans last October. So within a 1 year's period, it was possible to set up tailor-made gender action plans for each demonstrator. And now we are implementing the measures and the activities within each demonstrator, and all the demonstrators and the people who and partner organizations who are responsible for implementing, they meet on a regular basis and also exchange their ideas. And to give you more insight how it worked, I want to present to you just briefly the Austrian case and the Austrian gender action plan that we have developed. As I have mentioned, we started with gender analysis and asked and answered various questions. So who is involved, who takes decisions, what is the main aim of the demonstrator, what are kind of product services, who are the target groups, and how is the work organized. So these underlying questions were the starting point of our gender action plan. And then we developed a gender action plan as an instrument, as a report documentation on the project level. So we do not focus the organizational level, but really the project level of the demonstrator. And we also developed tailor-made targets and also activities that are really that fit to the needs of the demonstrator. And the actions of our gender action plan, they typically cover areas such as capacity building, awareness raising measures, and also participation of different target groups, and also focusing gender balance during implementation. And to give you an insight, I want to present then also the Austrian example. In Austria, we have a demonstrator that is located in Vienna, and it's a kind of a hospital where people with drug addiction live, and they also go to therapy. So they have on one hand an in-house therapy center and also outpatient service center. And we consider the patients really as a very vulnerable target group. And the main aim is really to design our activities not for the people, but really designing with the people. So we work together with that hospital, developed together also the thematic areas where we developed those precise activities. And one of those thematic areas is the gender dimension and energy literacy. We have differentiated the topic energy literacy on one hand for the staff members and also for the clients, for the patients. And what is really important for our demonstrator is also to spread the word about energy dimension and the gender dimension throughout, on one hand, our demonstrator, which is the hospital, but also tackling other stakeholders in Austria. And hopefully we will succeed in changing a little bit the mindset on energy transition and pointing out that including the gender dimension is really key when it comes to just transition processes. One of our thematic areas is gender dimension and energy literacy for the clients. And I want to show you the actions that we have developed within our gender action plan. So on one hand, we want to develop info brochures and also handouts that are tailored to the client's life circumstances. We will conduct gender-sensitive energy literacy workshops for the clients and also conduct women-only workshops on energy literacy for that specific target group. And we have co-worked with that hospital on developing the actions, and we also had the chance already to conduct workshops with the target group, with patients from that specific hospital. And I think it's really a very, on one hand, hard to reach and also very vulnerable group of people. And our intention is that if we manage to reach these people who are living in very precarious life circumstances, then we hope that we will succeed also addressing other groups of people when it comes to energy literacy and also pointing out the importance of the gender dimension in the energy sector. Of course, monitoring and evaluation is also part of our gender action plan. And we consider our gender action plan really as a living document because we set up the first actions, and then we will also do a monitoring and evaluation exercise. And hopefully we will also develop further actions that really help implementing the gender dimension in our demonstrators. We, as a project team, as I have mentioned, we also take our exercises and our experiences in the demonstrators really as a joint learning exercise. So we reflect all our efforts and share our experiences. And what is really as well, first result, what is really quite obvious is that gender sensitive and proactive process facilitation is really key and necessary in the demonstrators. And but on the other hand, co-creation really increases the ownership and also the trust. So when we co-work with the citizens, when we co-work with vulnerable groups of people, when we co-work with women in the energy transition, then we really bring one step further. And therefore, I would like to conclude with our, preliminary result. And we really are convinced that gender equality really strengthens energy transition, and that integrating an intersectional approach of the gender dimension is really key, really to fulfill the approach, leave no one behind. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to hear about your reactions, and also happy to answer your questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Bente. Maybe let us pause for a moment. Are there any questions that would be directly linked to the presentation? Maybe just to break the ice, if I may, Bente, you mentioned that you're doing also energy literacy workshops only for women. So I was wondering, how are these workshops different from any other energy literacy workshops? If you can explain, please.
I can explain it. So thanks for the question. On one hand, women-only workshops are really seen as an important, pillar to empower women, so that women in women-only workshops, they really do not have to fear, and it's an open-minded environment, and women can really ask everything, so they don't have to feel kind of stupid because maybe a male participant maybe would tend to do some explanation, and just and it's really a safe space for the women and to express everything. And next week we will also have the opportunity to have a workshop with migrant women, and we combine that energy literacy workshop also with the intention also to learn more about the energy bills, and also to support women in learning German. So that's also a co-benefit with one of our women-only workshops.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense, to create some safe space so that women can express themselves, and indeed not like have situations where they would feel stupid because they don't know something technical. I at the moment don't see any questions or raised hands. So I would urge the participants to feel welcome to raise questions or comments. And then maybe meanwhile thank Bente again for her excellent presentation, and move on to Marilyn Smith's presentation of experiences from WISE project. Marilyn will be talking about building energy solidarity for women, and explain us how they're doing this in Project WISE. I'll try to share your presentation, Marilyn, and please let me know when I need to move it on, and maybe just give me a moment to cross-check that everyone can see it. Is it visible for everyone? Can you see it?
Perfect.
Okay, then let's go on. Marilyn, the floor is yours.
Great. Okay, so thank you. I'm Marilyn Smith, as Lydia mentioned, and I'm the leader of the Energy Action Project, which is the coordinator of the Women in Solidarity for Energy project. And because the topic today was about gender and also community energy, I'm going to talk also about the Community Energy for Energy Solidarity project that we were involved in 2 years ago. It was a project that ran three years through the Horizon 2020. One of the things I want to mention right off the top is that WISE is actually funded by the SERVE project, which is their SERVE program, which is Citizens, Equality, Rights and Values. And so it's quite different from the type of project that Bente was just discussing, because in the last round of SERVE funding, really what they just wanted you to do was organize events that would help people understand their rights as EU citizens, and what EU values are, and why equality is important, and how to exercise those rights. So we didn't have to do the same level of, you know, having a lot of research component or yeah, it's just a kind of an easier program to do for the kind of activities we do, which is communications and events organization. So I'm going to walk you through WISE quickly and then move on to C. So if you can go to the next slide. Bente already acknowledged that the rates of energy poverty among women are much, much higher. And the statistic everybody knows is that 8 to 10% of households in the EU on average are facing some degree of energy poverty. If you look at single women, data on single women as a group, it goes up to 31%. And if you look at single mothers, it jumps to 44%. So it's really quite shocking that almost half of single mothers in Europe are facing energy poverty. It's often very severe energy poverty. And I was interested to learn recently that in France, 25% of households are single parents, and in 85% of cases, it's single mothers that have the children living with them. And the rate of energy poverty among single mothers in France is 52%. So it's even higher than that average. And we can go to the next slide. And so when WISE talks about single women, we recognize this is not a really, we couldn't find any good term for that, but we're looking at unmarried women, which is young students and young professionals, single mothers, elderly women, and then we're also focusing on migrant women who are, many of them are coming from warm climates where they have to not only adjust to a cold climate, but to energy systems that are completely unfamiliar with them, for them. And we'll go to the next slide. And so, yeah, I've said that women have a wider range of more severe adverse impacts. Typically, they live in poor quality housing. They can't afford sufficient energy to maintain healthy indoor temperatures. They tend to overconsume energy to some degree because everything they have is inefficient. Their dwellings are inefficient, and then they have old, low quality appliances that are also inefficient. And so they're super vulnerable to the negative health and well-being impacts, and they also suffer or experience hidden forms of energy poverty. So in order to stay on top of energy bills, they reduce their use of other essential goods and services. And we'll go to the next slide. So WISE specifically looked at, you know, it's a 2-year project, and we looked at the things that we need to do collectively across Europe. We're working in 7 countries, which is Bulgaria, Croatia, France, Greece, Hungary, Italy, and the Netherlands. And the first thing we recognized was the need to raise awareness of the injustices that are experienced by single women. And then what we wanted to do is organize energy solidarity actions to build up energy knowledge and energy know-how. And this is the energy literacy that Bente was talking about. But we have also kind of split that into what do people need to know about the technical parts of energy. So that's the energy knowledge, and the energy know-how is how do I use energy, or how do I interact with energy? And like every EU-funded project, of course, we're looking to create some more holistic approaches that align policy and practice to eradicate energy poverty among single women. And we can go to the next slide. So one of the first things we noticed is, well, we knew, is that there's a lot of content in English that, a lot of content in English that would be useful in other languages. So in March of last year, we ran a translate-a-thon and we had amazing participation. And what we were able to do was take the Right to Energy toolkit that the Cost Engager group did a few years ago, and we now have that available in 19 languages, 19 EU languages, well, 17 EU languages, and also Mandarin and Cantonese. We've got about 1,200 energy saving tips in diverse languages, and that was all due to about 70 volunteers who participated during that month. And if you can go to the next slide again, then the next awareness raising thing we did is host film events, and my organization did 3 documentary films a few years ago about different types of energy poverty. So we had film events where we screened those. We again translated the content into different languages, and we had roundtable events. And so those were quite successful. And then if we go to the next slide, we're now really in the solidarity mode, working directly with women. So we kind of did the preparation, did the awareness raising, and now we're doing energy workshops with women. And this next slide you can go to with that as well. And we're doing what we're calling energy solidarity days. So the women that we're working very closely with, they all have, sorry that my presentation seems to have a mind of its own.
Exactly.
But when we're working with women who are in energy poverty, and we're doing exactly the same kinds of workshops that Bente spoke about. But then what we're also doing is inviting volunteers from the community to show solidarity by going to these women's homes and implementing small measures like putting this reflective foil behind the radiators. And, you know, one of the things we recognize is that single women don't have, you know, a handyman at home. And so we're teaching them partly to do these things for themselves, but we're also helping them meet other women, and we're allowing men to participate in these energy solidarity days, because we think it is, you know, many of these women have good reasons to not trust the men that were in their lives at some point, but we want them to know that there are men in their community that are trustworthy and that they feel connected to. So as Bente was saying, there's, you know, definitely a social dimension that needs to be addressed, and this is partly how we're doing it. So we can go to the next slide. And then the last couple of things we're doing in WISE, we're at month 18 now, I think, of the 24-month project. So the next thing we're going to do is a storytelling workshop with the women so that they feel more empowered and to tell their own stories, and we're going to help amplify their voices. After that, we're having in each country a national event where we will invite these women to present their own stories. And then we're going to have a series of EU level events between March and June. So we will be at EU Sustainable Energy Week, and we'll be promoting a lot of EU level events. But the aim of those is for us to step back and put women on the platforms and let the women talk about, you know, what their experience is of being in energy poverty and how WISE and other initiatives are helping them come out of that. So that's kind of the WISE project. And then I'm going to just quickly switch over. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the so I'll tell you first about my neighborhood. Aubervilliers is a suburb of Paris, and it's where I live. Sorry, I really don't know why they're all just doing their thing. So Aubervilliers is a suburb of Paris, and it is the 4th poorest city in France. And so it's kind of bizarre that in this, you know, super wealthy city, 3 kilometers away, you have this very poor community. But it's super interesting in terms of a city. It's got about 96,000 inhabitants and 120 nationalities represented. About 40% of people live at or below the poverty level. 60% of the dwellings are substandard. 40% of people are renters, and 23% of the population is single mothers. So it's a city where levels of energy poverty are super high, and the number of single women in energy poverty is super high. So that's why we chose to focus the pilot project for WISE in Aubervilliers. And I'm just going to say a couple of things about what I've learned about the women in my neighborhood. One of the very first things they said to me when I started to connect with some of the women was, don't you dare come and tell me how to save energy, because I don't even use energy. You know, I barely ever turn on my heating. One woman said she turns her hot water tank on twice a week and keeps it off, so that, you know, basically it was like, don't come and tell me how to reduce my energy consumption because I don't use it. And then the second really important thing was they earn so little and their energy bills are so high that they're massively behind on their energy bills. And so if I say to them, what do you really need? They say, money. I need, you know, I cannot catch up on the arrears on my energy bill without financial support. And of course, a project like SERVE, there is no budget line to give women money. So this has been a real challenge for us. What we understand the women need most, we don't really have a mechanism to give them within the scope of the project. And when we first proposed this project, we had included a crowdfunding campaign in it because we thought this is also a way that people who can't participate in an Energy Solidarity Day could help women pay off their energy bills. And EU funding would not allow us to do a crowdfunding campaign. So we had to take that out of our original proposal, which we're now very sad about, because this is what women need the most, is just some financial help. So they, you know, of course, that's really related to their stress levels as well. So that was just a couple of things about the women in Aubervilliers. We are in the moment doing workshops, and we're doing exactly the kinds of things that Bente talked about as well, how to read your energy bill, how to change an energy supplier. And the workshop on how to change an energy supplier is very relevant for a couple of the women that we're working with, because they're in the process of divorcing from their husbands. And one of the very first things they want to do once their ex-husband is out of the home is change their energy supplier and make sure the energy bill is in their own names, so that they have ownership of that and responsibility of it. And they can't, you know, their ex no longer has any connection to the energy bill. So it was quite interesting to hear them. As soon as I said, oh, you know, we can talk to you about how to change energy suppliers, that was the first thing that came to some of their minds. Okay, so that was I really think my last slide on WISE, and I'll just quickly, and looking at the time, I have a couple more minutes. So the Community Energy for Energy Solidarity project, as I said, was a 3-year project, and it was really looking at how can energy communities take actions to uphold energy solidarity and alleviate energy poverty. And you can go to the next slide. And we really found over the course of this project, there was 2 streams of action: the research and validation action, which was taken by the University of Birmingham. But the practical partners in the project were really looking at these 5 areas of interest. So how do you identify who's in energy poverty? How do you engage with them? What actions can you take to support them? What actions can you take to help the people? And then support was really about how do you, as an energy community, how do you find the support that you need, the financial support, and other community support and those kinds of things. And then the last one was measuring your impacts. And everybody found in this project that the time it takes to identify and engage with the people in energy poverty puts a ton of pressure on community energy business models. And community energies are typically launched by people who have technical expertise and some money to invest, and they don't really know that much about energy poverty. They don't know who's in energy poverty. And in order to identify and engage with the people in energy poverty, you need completely different people than are typically staffed in an energy community. It's usually, you know, technical people and business people, but to work with people in energy poverty, you need people with a social work background and you know, a community events background, community organization background. And so there's this other staff person that you need to build into your business model. And if you haven't done that at the beginning, then you decide we'd like to start tackling energy poverty, it might kill your business model. So I think it's really important, and I know EPA is doing this, and there's also funding through the EU to look at different business models for energy communities. And we're actually doing that in Aubervilliers. And I wanted to just talk about, as Bente mentioned, it's really important to have meetings where women can talk among themselves. I recently had the opportunity to participate in a community energy planning event that was only women. And oh my God, I have to, it was absolutely wonderful that nobody talked over each other. Some people had quite high levels of, some of the women had quite high levels of the technical side, and some had quite high levels of the business side. And some, like me, were more like, what's the social part? And some were just there because they were curious. And it was such a nice event. The sense of everybody being free, as Bente said, to express whatever their questions or concerns, and nobody felt uncomfortable about doing that. Was really great. So I think I've taken up my time, and I'm going to skip the rest of my slides because I think I said everything I wanted to. Oh, sorry. There is an Energy Solidarity Toolkit, and the link for it is there. And so what it does is has, toolkit information on all of those 5 areas: identify, engage, act, support, and measure. But we also, on the CEAS website, made a whole bunch of blogs. So it's, it's a 120-page report, I think, but you can also just go onto the website and click on those links to see which of the blogs are relevant to the area that you're interested in learning about. And now I really am done.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marilyn. Maybe because I was unable to share the links in the chat, maybe eventually you can put the link in the chat and people can find it for themselves. Yeah, now I would like to open the floor for questions, issues, comments. Maybe while the participants are still thinking about their questions, I would just like to ask you, Marilyn, how do you reach out to women specifically? Do you go through like different organizations or clubs for women, or how do you get to the women?
Yeah, that's been really challenging, and each of our partners has taken quite a different approach. So in the Netherlands, Marlies Hesselman is one of our project partners, and she is an associate professor at the University of Groningen. And so her group decided that they would really focus on young women who are students or young professionals in their community. And so they worked with the university to organize workshops at the university. So young women who are away from home for the first time would learn about energy poverty and how to avoid it. In Budapest, in Hungary, our partners there are working primarily with the Roma community, and in that instance, they're very, very closely working with other organizations. And partly they've changed their names. It's the ELTA Center for Social Studies, and so this is very much an academic organization, and they recognized that nobody's going to feel connected to them, so they have worked with different NGOs that are very connected to the Roma community. But in a recent weekly meeting, they brought up that what's exciting for them is they, as these academics, now feel very connected to those NGOs and the Roma communities. So there's been a sense of solidarity developing between groups that didn't have much contact before. In my neighborhood, there are a lot of associations that are helping women in different ways, but it's proven much more difficult than I expected to build a connection with them. And I think it's because we're all small and we have very scarce resources and scarce human resources. So everybody's kind of busy doing their own thing. But I found a community center that is run as an associative entity, and I could tell right away that different groups of people who are relatively poor use it for different things. And there's a group of women that every Tuesday go there and they cook, and they collect food that is no longer able to be sold, and so they cook for themselves, but they also give some of that food out. And I began volunteering with them so that they got to know me before I was telling them what I wanted to do. And so in my case, it was very much figuring out, where do these women go and where do they meet some of their own needs, and how can I participate in that? So yeah, it's been very different approaches, but we were just having a meeting the other day because we're almost to the end of our deadline for having these workshops, and we're all quite stressed about how difficult it has been. And we said, it's easier to get 60 experts into a webinar than it is to get 6 women together for a workshop. And I was looking at our budget recently, and I realized the amount of money we've been able to devote to, the planning process, the translation, all of that, versus the money we're actually directing towards helping women, that the money that's being directed towards helping women is a really small percentage of our budget. And I think that it's terrible to say that, but it's the truth. And I think this happens in many EU funded projects. So we need to, what's working is by raising awareness, we are getting more and more interest in others helping us scale Wise Up, particularly in France. So I think, as we get funding for the next round, we can just say, well, we've done all of that preparatory work and now we can really deliver services. And so the budget allocation will shift in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn. It sounds very exciting what you're doing. And I think maybe sometimes in Europe, we should actually develop schemes for supporting women that are normally targeted to Africa or Asia, like with this micro loans and so on. But yeah, maybe that's a wider discussion than this webinar. Meanwhile, we have a question for all the presenters from Zita. And the question is, what would be your recommendations to the policymakers to help especially women in energy poverty? How do you want to start? Who wants to start? Go ahead.
Do you want to go, Bente?
No, you can start and then I will just continue.
Okay. So I think for us, where we see the gap at the moment is so many of the policies are renovation oriented, which is quite irrelevant to these women because they're not owners, and they, even if they were, they wouldn't have money to renovate their own homes. So we're really trying to convince in Aubervilliers, one of the things we want to do is potentially put solar panels on this social venue that I discussed. And in France now, it's possible to, if you set up an energy community, you can deliver electricity to people within a 2-kilometer radius and offer lower tariffs for some people. So we, as a next step, we're going to look into how could we do a local energy community, potentially using the roof of this space that all these women go and use anyways, and at least help a few of them have lower energy bills. And then we'll look at other buildings in Aubervilliers where we can maybe do that. But in the meantime, we're also just looking at how do you just help these women take those small measures to increase their thermal comfort. I was telling these women the other day about the reflective foil, and I hadn't had that in my apartment before, but I put it in a couple of years ago. And it was just like a couple of days after I'd gotten, for the first time in years, a thermostat put on my radiator, which was an initiative of the government. And I could see that in my hallway radiator was using half the amount of electricity as my office radiator. And my office radiator is on an external wall. So of course I was heating the wall. So I went to the hardware store and bought this foil, and it cut my electricity consumption to heat my office by 40%. And I had in my head that it was going to be 10 or 15%. So that, to realize something that costs 5 or 7 euros to implement and cuts your electricity bill by 40%. And the women, when I showed them this, they're like, oh, we didn't know that existed. So I think for the renters, the women who are in energy poverty and their renters, we really need to do those kinds of things on a massive scale. And it should be the city that pays for that, ideally.
From my perspective, recommendation for the politics. I would underline what Marilyn has said, but I would also like to add the discussion about the prices. So prices are not neutral. There are also human-made prices. So that's also a political decision how the prices are. So that especially when it comes to the huge, most of the time also public-owned energy suppliers, it could also be a political decision really to have lower prices for energy poor households, so that could also easily be implemented on one hand. On the other hand, when we talk about money, then everything seems to be quite complicated. And on the other hand, I would also stress the topic of energy literacy. I think energy literacy should also be a part of the general education at schools, at the kindergartens, and so on, so that people or the students really learn we can do something about energy, and it's not a miracle. And really to also spread the idea of energy communities in starting, as I have mentioned, from the kindergarten up to schools and so on. And what also could be a possibility is that public administration and also the policy area, that they check about the buildings and the heating and the energy system of public building. And that could also be a good starting point where really some changes, and then the public sector could really also be considered as a front runner. And as in Austria, we have, especially in the city of Vienna, as you probably know, the city of Vienna is also a house owner. So social housing is quite well, the city of Vienna, they always consider themselves as the inventors of social housing. And then that's also a sphere where the public area and also politics could really do something against energy poverty. And they just look on their own buildings that are owned by the state or by the city, or at least by some organizations that are close to the cities or the municipalities.
I'd like to bring up one follow-up point in relation to the fact that most policies now are focused on renovating buildings, and it's very relevant in my neighborhood, as where I said there's so many people in precarious situations. France has put in place an obligation, if you're the owner of a rental property, that I think it's by 2028, you have to bring it up to a B level of energy efficiency. But in my neighborhood, the risk is two things are going to happen. One, that owners, there's lots of owners who inherited poor quality buildings, but they can't afford to fix them, so they'll just sell them instead of having to fix them up. And there's a huge black market in the rental areas. So anybody who's in the renting under the table is never going to demand that their landlords do those renovations, because it just puts them in an even more precarious situation. So I think, on paper, that's a great policy. Is it going to work at a practical level? I don't know.
Yeah, it's exactly one of the discussions which we had with the we have a ministry for so-called Solidary Future. And actually, they are also trying to target energy poverty in rental sector, but exactly for the reason that you mentioned, they're saying we don't dare to start doing anything because people will be just kicked out into the streets. So yeah, maybe Marco, please say thanks to Marina because she disappeared. Yeah, it was really nice to have her around. Maybe just a small under question to Zita's question is, we sometimes suggested to the policymakers to actually make programs for funding targeted for women. And we got the response from the policymakers that they are not allowed to do that because that would be actually discrimination, and they're not allowed to discriminate even if it's, so to say, positive discrimination. Did you have such experiences, and if yes, what do you answer to that?
I haven't experienced that myself, but I can imagine that it happens and that it will happen more in the future.
It would be interesting to hear what kind of arguments we can build against this sort of reasoning. So yeah. I don't see any questions, so I would just like to ask Bente and Marilyn, do you still have any final thoughts, final wrap-up that you want to share with us?
From my point of view, I would like to stress the issue of networking and co-working and really share experiences. So I really enjoyed the preparation of our webinar, and as from our we also work in Austria with several energy community projects, and we are working in one of our projects where the jury really mentioned that we should co-work and do some exchanges with our other sister projects. So and that was really very fruitful and important. And I would really like to propose, if it could be of interest, that we really set up also a quite of an informal network where we share our project preliminary results or final results and really keep the discussion ongoing. So maybe that could be a grassroots initiative coming from the different projects, because I really liked, Marilyn, what you have presented with your projects and activities, and I think we really should learn from each other instead of re-eventing everything. So and we know a lot. We try really to implement all our lessons learned into practice, and I think that is also necessary that we share also our lessons learned together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing that I've found really interesting is as soon as I created an opportunity for my own circle of friends and a few people in the community that I know who are not in energy poverty, as soon as I created the opportunity for them to participate in this idea of energy solidarity, they jumped on it. They really, like it, the data for the number of single women in, or single mothers in energy poverty is absolutely shocking to everybody. So they absolutely want to help those women. And so I think we are being successful in creating this community around these women. But I'm very worried, as I said, our project, our funding runs out in August of this year. And I feel like I've spent so much time building up this relationship and this community in my community. And I think, oh my God, like I feel very responsible to them now. And so I have to find different mechanisms to keep this activity going, or by next winter, I'm going to be irrelevant to them again. And they're going to, and we've touched, we've probably worked with 15 to 20 women in my neighborhood, and there's probably 10,000 that are in energy poverty. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It seems we're basically starting to scratch the surface of the problem, so to say. I think today's event was very useful to bring some of us together, and we can, in lines of what Bente suggested, think of some more possibilities and opportunities to do this kind of like exchange events, also within Gender4Power. And I think maybe the upcoming live calls, which will probably be launched in like the next few weeks, might be an opportunity to try to network and see how we can take these initiatives further. For today, I would like to thank you all very much, especially the speakers, but as well the participants, like Friday after lunch, where when sometimes or in many places finally we see the sun, was probably challenging to stay behind the computer. But I think we had such such an important topic to cover that I think it was really worth it. Now I wish you a lovely afternoon and a nice reminder of the Friday the 13th. Let nothing scary happen to you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.